I want to welcome Dan Lear today to talk about his new role at Gravity Legal. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Chad. Really great to be here with you folks.
Many people know Dan of Avo fame. In fact, if I recall
Or
correctly,
infamy, right? Either way. Right.
infamy, like you were what, Mark Britton's boss at Avo? Is that?
I mean, I didn't like to tell everyone that, but I mean,
Hmm.
he did what I said. I don't know if that's,
Right,
boss,
right,
how do
right.
you,
Just because he had that CEO label.
right?
Right. He's still,
I wanted to humor him, it was
right,
like it was
exactly.
an
You got to
HR
throw
thing.
him a bone. Yeah,
Totally.
we laugh, and he's probably sitting on his private island right now, and
Totally.
we're talking to each other. So that's right,
Right. That answers who really was the CEO.
right, exactly. So now that I've built you up with lots of
Yes.
credibility, let's talk about
Let me open my mouth and knock myself back down.
right, exactly, right. So you're with Gravity Legal now. So like, tell what's your role? Tell us about Gravity Legal.
Sure.
What's the role in the legal space?
So a few different pieces. I'm heading up marketing and partnerships. We're a small team, so like I am the marketing department more or less. I also do sales. I do some strategy. I even help out with some product stuff. And Gravity Legal is a division of a larger company called Gravity Payments, which folks may be aware of. And if you'll humor me, Chad, I'll take a quick kind of tour of who Gravity Payments is and what they
I will
do.
always humor you. That's always there.
Laugh at me, maybe not, but humor me, yes.
No. Right,
or
exactly.
or laugh with me, maybe. Anyway,
Right, whatever it
enough with
is.
the
There's
enough with
something.
the dad
You
jokes.
can talk about whatever you want. The fun, do whatever you want.
So folks may know Gravity Payments. It's a fairly well-known payment processor, at least here in the Seattle area where I'm based. And I think best known for something that's not super relevant to what we're talking about today, but for our CEO's strong advocacy of paying all of their employees a living wage. And specifically back in like 2015, our CEO, Dan Price, got a bunch of press for announcing a $70,000 minimum wage for every employee. And he was covered in the New York Times and was on USA
Yep.
Today or in USA Today, the Today Show, all of that. And that continues to be a real value of Gravity payments and kind of this very collegial and kind of committed internal culture is still very much a part of who we are and what we do. Um, but that's kind of, I think, where folks may be familiar with the name Gravity
Well,
Legal.
and
Oh, go ahead,
that's helpful. Just if I can interrupt you, because
please.
usually, about this time I ask how much you make, and we already know at least how much you make, so it's fine. I
That's
don't have
fair.
to ask the question.
You don't have to go through that awkward
Right, I've
conversation.
got a
That's exactly right.
minimum. I've got a good baseline for you, so that's good to know.
Well, and again, after I totally cleaned house at Avo,
Right, you
it
don't
doesn't,
need anything.
what's
You don't
money?
just put the. Don't worry about the minimum, Dan. It's fine.
So Gravity Payments
Gravity legal.
historically, yeah, Gravity Payments has historically and to this day been focused primarily on small businesses. And so the company's almost 20 years old. And over that time, they've helped a number of different small businesses, yoga studios, restaurants, bars, the whole nine yards, but had also picked up a handful of lawyers and today even support around 200 or 300 different law firms as part of their stable of broader clients. And they, a number of years ago, sort of noticed that uh, they were doing basically a lot of, or just about everything that a lot of the legal specific payment processors were doing and just weren't marketing it that way. And again, we don't have to nerd out about this, but like there are some very kind of specific, not really that complicated, but specific mechanics about if you accept a payment into your trust account electronically, the cost for that payment processing has to come out of your operating account. Like
Right.
that's really it. There are a few other pieces, but that's really it. And so they realized like, hey, we're doing this and we're just not marketing it that way. And so there was a small team of folks at Gravity who got interested in kind of really rolling this out. And so we built a little bit of software on top of the Gravity payment software and are now kind of focused solely on lawyers and law firms with Gravity Legal. So I think, does that cover most of it, do you think?
Yeah, I think it does. That's good.
Cool.
It's good. You know what you're doing, so that's helpful. So that's good. That's so
step one.
Right, step one. Got it. So they're not paying you for nothing. So that's good.
Right. Yeah.
uh, so the so you talked about different types of payment plan. Like obviously, like it's interesting. The topic's really interesting because for many of us, the concept of accepting electronic payments, just seems obvious. But there's with legal specific payment processors, and you seeing Gravity Legal seeing the opportunity there, like that suggests or indicates that electronic payments are not as widely adopted as we would expect them to be at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, and I know we were going to maybe chat a little bit about the pandemic, and this might be
Yeah, we can just jump into that now.
Well, I mean, I'll kind of start high level. Like some of the data that we've seen, and I think this is fairly reliable, suggests that not even 50%. I mean, I think it could be as low as like 20 or 30% of lawyers and law firms accept electronic payments, credit cards, debit cards, or even ACH or kind of bank transfers. So yeah, like that's a relatively modest minority of folks who
right. And so you mentioned the pandemic, and we're gonna one of the things that is still, even though we're a year into it, and 2021 happened and everything got back to normal. Sure. Right, exactly. And we're recording this while Texas doesn't have power.
Right.
And I think Ted Cruz is on his flight back from Cancun or wherever he went. So with the people being more remote, are you seeing wider adoption at this point?
I mean, so absolutely, like it's pretty obvious. And on the one hand, we kind of formally launched around February or March of last year. We'd been kind of working on
Gravity Legal.
So okay. Yeah, Gravity Legal did. So our timing was a little crazy. I mean, certainly, it was really interesting. We had a number of calls super early on with lawyers just calling us up being like, hey, the clients are still sending me work. They're still willing to pay. The problem is I've always told them to send me checks in the mail. And now the checks are in a lockbox that I physically can't get access to. So I need to get this electronic payments thing up and going like yesterday.
Right.
And so that was part of certainly the initial wave, and maybe because we're small, we haven't seen quite the, wave that maybe I know that like Clio said they had their best quarter ever or whatever a few months ago. So maybe we haven't seen quite the wave just because of awareness. But I mean, certainly if you are a smart law firm owner, you're going to see that these types of disruptions can have a huge impact on your business. And even if you plan to continue to accept only cash and physical checks, facilitating your ability to accept payment in another way, like even if it's just your backup plan, is when revenue is crucial to your business. And again, for some of these firms, business never dropped or even increased for some random reason, right? Like you need to be prepared. And so I think both the combination of hey, I got to solve this problem tomorrow, and hey, this could be a problem in the future, so I need to sort of prepare myself against it. Both of those have been great. And I will say the third thing we've seen, Chad, we've built a couple of technologies, not to get too pluggy or salesy, but we've built a couple of technologies that help our clients, our law firm clients, save a fair bit of money. And so, again, as firms have been looking to cut costs or otherwise sort of strategically deploy their resources, we've got a couple of differentiating factors that help there that have also helped us over the last year.
Okay, so that's interesting. So when you say cut costs, you mean credit card processing fees?
So I'll just quickly dive in. And again, I don't want to make this a sales pitch, but
here's why. Sorry, no, I'm not.
No, go ahead.
Stopping you. I'm not actually sorry.
No, I'm not sorry.
I meant to, but context. So it's because where you know, that's something that law firms are looking at, where they're trying to figure out. And I've heard that over and over again over the years, is like the reason why I don't accept credit card processing, or credit cards, is because I lose so much money on the processing fee. But then you have examples like pandemic oriented situations where all of a sudden, yeah, yeah, you might lose X% of it, but that's a lot better than that check sitting in
Right.
your lockbox, like you mentioned earlier, so that you're screwed and you can't get to.
Or,
You know,
or someone else just not coming to you because you don't accept those
well,
payments, right? And it's not
right, because
easy,
like
right?
I don't want to leave my house says
Yep.
client, and right, I don't have any stamps, so you're gonna have to wait until I can go to the post office and
Right.
am allowed in public.
Yep.
So okay, so
Yeah. No. So
lower
yeah, a
costs.
couple things. I think, at a high level, and this has been the case for lawyers accepting electronic payments, since the beginning, is like, don't be, lawyers can be penny wise and pound foolish, right? Like, if a 3%, which is typically what payment processing costs, will either get you paid faster or get you paid, right?
Right,
Whereas improve your collections rate, like, that's an investment you should make. And again, that's like, I'm not like, that's a plain kind of common sense business or economics like argument, right? It's like,
right,
is 97% today better than, maybe a 25% chance of collecting the entire fee 3 months from now, right? Like you
right.
can figure that out. To just drill down specifically. So, and let me just make a couple of other kind of initial points. Like, we don't happen to charge a monthly fee. So we only charge, and actually even one level higher. The way that most processors make most of their money, as again we were alluding to, but just to make it explicit, is that we take a portion of the volume, right? So if you
Right.
have a fee for $100, we take 3% of that, which is $3. You get your 97, you pay us your three. That's kind of the typical payment processing model. Some firms, some companies like us charge a monthly fee. We don't do that. So right out of the gate, firms can save a little bit of money. But kind of, going one level down. And well, and I'll just say one other thing too. For the most part, like, payment processing to a large degree is a commodity, right? Like, sitting here wearing my Gravity legal hat, I would suggest that firms go with a processor who knows legal, because you're not going to pay that much more. Sometimes you'll even
Right.
pay less, and you'll be working with someone who like knows how to handle trust account funds. But other than that, like, it's a commodity, right? It's not highly differentiated, and the costs are pretty much baked in. But if kind of thinking about ways to save money, we've done a couple of things that we've seen have really helped our clients save money. And one is, we've built some technology that helps firms to shift the cost of credit card processing to their clients. Now, some firms don't like doing this. Some firms think it's slimy. Some firms are uncomfortable with it. We don't require firms to do it, but we have worked with firms who do it. And for those firms who do it, particularly if they take a lot of credit cards, it can reduce their processing by 60 to 80%. So instead of paying 3%, you're
Right.
paying 1% or less.
Got it.
Now, a couple of just quick caveats there. You can't do, we call it surcharging, and you can't surcharge on debit cards or on bank transfers by law. So you can only
Okay.
surcharge on credit cards. But even then, like, again, if you're a firm that takes a lot of credit cards, if you're particularly like a business firm where you're getting a lot of Amex or a lot of like Chase
Right.
cards, this can be a way to, again, pretty significantly reduce your costs. And then the other thing, and I guess just one other, because this is kind of a legal audience. There are a handful of states that prohibit this by ethics rules,
Got it.
or prohibit it by state law. It's like 6, and I don't have that list off the top of my head. But in every other state, it's either expressly permitted or there's no, opinion or rule about it. And then the other thing that we've done is we've integrated ACH really tightly into the product. And so, like, it's very easy for a client to choose either, credit or debit or ACH. And we charge 0.35% for ACH. And as a result, because that ACH is right there, and again, 0.35 is way less than 3%. As a result, clients tend to choose that way more often. We see about 25% of our volume for clients coming through ACH. And that has that'll, on average, again, depending on how much your clients use it, can bring your costs, your overall blended rate down from about 3% to 2%. So again, I didn't want this to be a sales pitch, but those are a couple things that we've done where clients have said, our customers have said, hey, that's a compelling enough reason for us to sort of take a look at you. And we're really looking to cut costs because we don't, future's uncertain right now.
Right. And so you mentioned technology earlier and developing some technology, obviously from the standpoint of payment processing, like you said, commodity, where it is a big deal for firms. And I've been a part with law firms of doing the analysis of moving to, X, credit card processor, going from the having the physical thing in their office from their local bank,
Yep.
because they know their personal banker, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden pandemic hits and that thing can't move out of their office, or get stuck in their office. You mentioned the technology and integrations. Now, obviously you've got, um, examples, and I assume if I say specifics, you're not going to get angry, but if you do, that'd be awesome too. So we know like LawPay and Clio are tightly integrated. That's just a fact. Is Clio Pay is supported by LawPay. How are you guys at Gravity Legal kind of doing that, like making it seamless for law firms to be able to kind of use it with what they have already?
Sure. Great. So super great question. And I would say like our vision is that payments should be invisible. Like it should be invisible to the firm and it should be invisible to the firm's clients. It should be as easy and seamless as possible. And we're definitely, we're just getting started. So we're working toward that, but to give you some specifics. So we do have a Clio integration. Clio has an open API. We developed that API just like anybody can. There are some things that we can offer through our Clio integration. For example, the surcharging or the integrated ACH that you don't get from their, tighter integration with LawPay, but there are things that they have that we don't, but we do have a couple of clients on Clio and they seem happy. So that's one thing we've done. We've also built out integrations and are working on integrations with a handful of other folks. So we currently have another one with a practice management provider called Lean Law. They're built on top of QuickBooks, but we've got an integration with them and they've been an awesome partner. We've kind of got a couple of other, backdoory kind of kludgier, that's not fair, but just a little more sort of less tightly integrated like integrations with actually like Calendly and Acuity and a few others.
Where you can like have somebody schedule a meeting, like a consultation, and then pay the consultation fee.
It's not totally tightly integrated, but it's there and you can do it. We've got some articles on our site about how you can do that. A couple of things that we're pretty excited about is we will be launching an integration, I think in the next month or so, with QuickBooks. Interestingly, we find there's a fair number of attorneys who don't necessarily use a practice management system, but more or less run their business right out of QuickBooks. We've got a number of clients who are doing that. And so we've definitely seen a demand for that. And then we're also launching, hopefully in the next week or so, this is mid to late February that we're talking to you folks. So
remember, Ted Cruz is on a plane.
Ted Cruz.
I assume this is going to be a big deal. So we want to make sure that we're super pop culture relevant.
Totally. My Apple newsfeed is filled with Britney Spears references.
That's been like that for like what, 15 years?
It's been a solid, well, does that say more about my newsfeed than about
that's anyway. All. Listen, it's fine. We can get into that next.
We don't judge,
That's my next question.
But we're also launching soon an integration with Zapier to really again make those kind of really tap into the connective tissue that Zapier has developed between different legal integration or legal technologies, but also frankly other technologies that aren't legal, like the G Suite and Office 365 and others that lawyers use regularly, but aren't necessarily legal. So, and then we have a whole host of other integrations that we're working on. We've got a pretty full roadmap because that's really our vision. Because I will say, when I talk to a fair number of lawyers actually about their process, about their billing and payments process in a situation in which a payments processor is supposedly integrated into their practice management system. And they say, oh yeah, we use the integrated. And then I ask, okay, well, tell me a little bit more about your process. Often they're like, well, actually we're flipping back and forth between our practice management system because it doesn't quite do this or doesn't quite do that, or we need it to do this and it doesn't. And like the goal, in my opinion, should really be for that process to be so smooth and so streamlined. And so that's the world where we're moving toward. And not only that, but hopefully also more broadly, a world in which those systems all talk better to each other, right? Or with each other. So where your practice management speaks to your payment processor, who also speaks really effectively to QuickBooks or Xero, and also talks to your bank, right? That's down the road. But like, as we move forward, like the first step is like, let's make that payments layer just completely invisible. And then let's think about how all of these systems talk to each other. And we actually have a pretty good handle on that because we know where the money comes in from and who it comes in from.
Right.
So then we can sort of hopefully build the pipes that make all of that talk together more effectively. So I don't know, I kind of spun off there, but yeah, integrations are a big piece of it. And I think it's really important.
Well, and just to make sure that it's worth covering, just because I don't think everybody fully appreciates what Zapier is.
Yeah.
I mean, just for, if you can give the kind of high level version from your vantage point, like Zapier is a third party tool that connects other cloud-based solutions. So it would connect like Gravity Legal to Xero, or, some other, maybe your project management software. Maybe you use Trello to manage your cases and your project management for your cases. And then, you could zap, into the client card every time a payment occurs, just to keep a record of it. So it's this connector. So what does that mean? What does Zapier mean from like a Gravity Legal perspective?
Well, I would say, what it means for us is a whole bunch of things, but I think more importantly, what it means for the audience, hopefully, is that folks who use Gravity Legal, or even folks who are trying to think about how to tie together disparate systems,
right,
Zapier can help. And we should be clear, Zapier is the best known one. I think there are other tools out there, IFTT, if this and that, and there are other technologies. Though again, Zapier is the big one. But you said it. The way I describe it, Chad, is Zapier is like the connective tissue between like otherwise disparate systems. So if your practice management system or your project management system builds an API to Zapier, and then some other system builds an API to Zapier, depending on how much functionality both of those make available through Zapier, you can get those systems to talk to each other and to kind of trigger different actions in each of those respective systems. And so even in a situation like a direct integration is best, but like not every software company has the resources to build an integration to every other software company that one of their customers use.
Right. And yeah, direct integrations are best. But what I like about, Zapier's are, that's the main one. But like Zapier integrations, you can be creative with them, I think. And if that's something you're into, like you can be more specific as to how you push data around, which I think has a lot of benefit if you want. And Zapier is one of those tools that if you know it or you spend time with it, you can pick up at least the basics to like medium grade, concepts within it. But there are people out there, like we've had we hired a contractor at one point. He does other things, but he's like a Zapier, Zapier guy. And so he's built crazy zaps for us that like just were beyond my pay grade. And so like being able to understand it, and so he could add scripts and like do all the stuff like, hey, we want it to do these 10 things. And then but we can't make Zapier do it. And he's like, well, Zapier can do 7 of them, but I can build little scripts over here to make the other 3 work with Zapier and whatever solution you're doing. So there's just a lot of opportunity there. So what it means for, the lawyer, the consumer, is that one, if you use different systems, you connect them all together. And then the flip side for you guys, obviously, it gives you, you don't have to go out and build all those integrations at that point. As long as, people understand. I remember when Clio came out with the Zapier integration, that was a massive deal because all of a sudden it took, at the time, like a handful of integrations that were still useful, but then it just opened the door up for everything else as far as like the ability to choose what you're using. And so you're not entering data over and over again.
Yeah. And I'll just mention two quick things, but yeah, I agree with everything you just said. One thing, again, just for full disclosure, like Zapier costs, right? That's
Right.
that's how they make their money, is like with Zaps you pay. So it's not free.
Right.
But again, like for the efficiencies you can gain through their, the customized workflows you can build, it can be really powerful and really valuable. As another sort of slightly shameless plug, but I think related, right? I just did an article actually for the ABA. Well, I guess relevant. So shout out the ABA too. For the ABA GP Solo magazine, I interviewed a number of lawyers who had actually built their own practice management systems in a bunch of different ways. But one super common theme, there were two really common themes, and again, we'll nerd out here if you want, one was Zapier, how folks use Zapier, and then another one was actually Airtable.
Right.
People, and again, like if we want to go one level deeper, like Zapier is great in building that connective tissue, but Airtable really, and I'll give a shout out to other folks in legal, Lawya, Documate, formerly Community Lawyer, now After Pattern, who are building some very similar technologies. But something like Airtable or these other legal specific technologies actually can kind of give you the baseline tools to begin to do a lot of, really from the core perspective, what kind of pasting a bunch of different things together with Zapier can do. And again, just totally shameless plug, I also did an episode of my podcast. We've got a podcast called Financially Legal, where I went even deeper on some of the, because I only was able to interview 3 for the ABA article, but I talked to a total of, actually I talked to more than this, but I talked about 6 or 7 that I talked to I talk about in the podcast. So folks want to listen to that. But yeah, just to go kind of one level of nerdery deeper, right? Zapier can be really powerful, but there are also firms that are like getting kind of even more kind of going one layer deeper and really thinking about, hey, I want my process to work like this. And there are tools that can help facilitate that, which I think is pretty cool.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's the key, because we could, interview 20 lawyers and they may all be using the same practice management software at their core, maybe for billing or something like that, but they're using, dozens of other tools to make sure that it works the way they want. And so that whole kind of, platform as a service is such a big deal, whether people label their product as that or not. It's huge.
Well, and I'll even go one step further. There's one fellow I interviewed.
We have got so many steps further. I like it.
How many? We're gonna have to.
We're so deep right now. Back. We're like Texas snow deep or something. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, that's it.
I interviewed an attorney in Canada. David Van Morsel is his name, and he had sort of just started on this process of like kind of Zapier and automation, and he found Airtable, and now he's like, I only use my practice management system because he's in Ontario. The Ontario Law Society requires me to use a cloud-based practice management system for auditing purposes.
Right.
But other than that, like I push documents to it. I push information to it.
Right.
To meet my auditing requirements, but I wouldn't do that if not for that. Right. So he had like advanced past that platform, which I thought was pretty interesting too.
Which is fascinating, because usually people are pushing it out, right? Like it's, it's not, that's the centralized brain, but he's got a different centralized brain for his tech. And it's like, all right, I'll check the box for auditing over here. And then,
do everything else over there. Yeah.
Right. Which makes sense, because like the key is like running things like you want. And so the more you can, set it up and customize, whether, whatever it is, whether it's from note taking to getting money in the door, all of those things matter. If it helps you work better, you should do it that way, instead of just trying to force yourself into a box. Some of the practice management software I saw, recently, and I don't know a lot of the details on it, but like I know like my case even recently has been doing more integrations than they used to. They used to be more of a closed off service.
Mm.
You know, Clio, Practice Panther, Rocket Matter of others have always been like integration heavy. And, but you've got, a scenario where, even like my case, which was more closed off, is now opening up. So the more customized you can be, the better. So
Totally.
very good. Well, hey, you need to run,
Yep.
and so I appreciate your time. And thanks a lot. Anything else before we should chat out? How do people get in contact? We'll put this below, but like, how do people get in contact with Avo's former leader?
That'd be Mark Britton at avo.com.
Mark, oh, that's right.
Me, however, so I'm at Lear at gravity-legal.com. You can find us at gravity-legal. And then of course I spend way too much time on Twitter. You can find me at Right Brain Law.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chad. We do this again. This is fun.
We will do part like 2 and 3. Go super
Totally.
deep.
For an audience